So here we are, two-thirds of the way through the president's first 100 days, and ironically enough, the best description of these last 2 months comes from the man that Barack Obama beat to get this job. And that is our headline this Friday night, day number 67 of redistribution you can believe in, generational theft. Now, the president's brand of socialism has put a big old mortgage on our children's future. Now, this is the kind of mortgage that got us into this mess to begin with, the rotten kind. Now, Democrats are using this crisis as an opportunity to push their far-left agenda, and now they're even getting pressured by far-left lunatic groups like MoveOn.org, who will put radio ads on the air in an attempt to bully skeptical, moderate Democrats.
It's what's wrong with Wall Street and Washington. AIG executives get millions in bonuses after running their company into the ground, and we get to pay for it. That's not all. With the Bush tax cuts for the wealthy still in place, hedge fund managers and executives at firms like AIG will get millions more in tax loopholes this year. There's a better way. President Obama's new budget will make Wall Street pay its fair share and use the savings to invest in energy, education, and health care to help get our economy moving again. Wall Street firms oppose it, but given their recent track record, that's a good sign.
Now, between the nut roots and their radical agenda and Tim Geithner and his war in the business community, our children may not recognize the country that we all grew up in. And it's all to pay for this president's socialist agenda. Now, it's in that spirit that we have a special announcement tonight. On April the 15th, which, of course, is tax day, I will be hosting this show from Atlanta, Georgia, where one of the dozens of Tea Party protests will be going on. Now, that evening, we'll also have coverage from other protests around the country. And we're going to be given more details about how you can participate in the days to come. So stay tuned, check out our website, and of course you can tune into my radio show on 535 radio stations around the country. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your country, and it's the perfect time to make your voice heard. And joining us now tonight with more is Minnesota Republican Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann is with us. Congresswoman, how are you? Welcome back.
I'm doing great, Sean. Thanks again for the invitation.
Now, you notice in that Move On ad, now you have been the target, and I was reading a lot about you today in preparation for our interview. You have been targeted. They're doing everything they can do to smear, besmirch, attack every aspect of you and what you say in your life. How are you dealing with it in your political career?
Well, it's all about shooting the messenger, because this week I had made a confrontation of the Obama administration. Is this, number one, constitutional, what they're doing? I don't think it is. And number two, I'm very concerned about the international moves they're making, particularly the question that there was about moving the United States off of the dollar and onto a global currency like Russia and China are calling for. This has then put me kind of in the crosshairs, but that's why Americans have to suit up and realize what's at stake right now. We have to fight for our freedom and the future of our country.
All right, well, let's talk specifically. You have a bill that would stop, and it's getting a lot of momentum, as I understand it. Now, for those that don't remember, Tim Geithner earlier this week said he would be open to the possibility or consider the possibility of a global currency, as was first advanced by all people, the Communist Chinese. Tell us what the status of the bill is and what it would do.
Well, what I have done is put together a bill. I have about 30 members of the House of Representatives that have signed on. It would bind the president or his designee from putting the United States into either an international agreement or a treaty that would take the United States off of the dollar and put us on an international global currency, a one world currency government. And right now, this isn't talk. Russia has called for this. China, India, South Africa, Brazil,
the United
numbers
Nations.
of stations,
Yeah.
United Nations, at the G20. So that's why in Financial Services Committee on Wednesday, I put the question directly to our Treasury Secretary and our Federal Reserve Chair, asking them, will you categorically denounce taking the United States off the dollar? They said yes, they would denounce it, but the very next day, before the Council on Foreign Relations, our Treasury Secretary, Tim Geithner, said that he would be open to this suggestion. So which Tim Geithner do we believe?
Well, the same Tim Geithner that said he had no knowledge of the AIG bonus bailout when he was the architect of it, but that's a different story. Let me ask you this, because the Congressional Budget Office, and for those that don't know at home, this for years was the gold standard in terms of the estimates of forecasting where the economy is going. Now, not only do they project $10 trillion in deficits under the Obama plan, tripling our national debt. But they also said this is not going to be a stimulus bill. And they predict unemployment is going to hit 9.4% and remain well above 7% till 2011. Now, this is based on the stimulus plan. This was supposed to stop all of this. How come this is getting little or no coverage, considering Congress used to rely on that for all of their budget estimates?
It's beyond me. I think it's because, Sean, the president is relying on the Office of Management and Budget. That's the president's in-house budget network, and they're projecting an unbelievably rosy economy, rosy recovery, and low numbers on the spending side. None of which any major none of which is going to happen.
Let me roll a little tape. This is you confronting TurboTax cheat, as I call him, Tim Geithner, earlier this week about the Constitution.
What provision in the Constitution could you point to give authority for the actions that have been taken by the Treasury since March of '08?
Oh, well, the Congress legislated in the Emergency Economic Stabilization Act a range of very important new authorities.
Sir, in the Constitution, what in the Constitution could you point to give authority to the Treasury for the extraordinary actions that have been taken?
Every action that the Treasury and the Fed and the FDIC is been using authority granted by this body, the Congress.
And in the Constitution, what could you point to?
Under the laws of the land, of course.
You know, when I watched that Congresswoman, it was clear to me he didn't know what you were asking or understand it, because what you're saying is constitutionally, what is the role of government to take on or nationalize and spend this amount of money? He didn't get it. That's frightening. Should he be fired?
Well, Sean, I will say that our Constitution is to have a strict enumerated powers of government. Government was never intended to have this sort of an incredible intervention in the economy. We are not a centralized, planned economy. At least we're not supposed to be. We're a free market capitalism. And that's what I'm pointing out. Congress passes laws that are unconstitutional. But I swear allegiance to the Constitution, just as Secretary Geithner does. He needs to have allegiance to the Constitution, not to the directives of his boss, the president.
Well, I got to tell you, keep it up, Congresswoman. You're doing a great job, and I have no doubt they'll keep attacking you because you're so effective. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you. We're going to fight for our freedom.
Absolutely. Against